folks? This here is a vintage Proctor Silex toaster. This one is branded Eaton Viking, which here in Canada used to be a big box department store, and this was rebranded for them. And yes, this is one of those old automatic toasters with beautiful wood paneling on the side, but it's not really wood, it's actually just sheet metal that looks like it. And I love this toaster so much, I decided to claim it for myself, so nobody may ever have it. Kind of reminds me of that episode of Everybody Loves Raymond. You know which one I'm talking about. Now, one of the things that's so special about this toaster, aside from the beautiful mirror chrome finish, is the fact that this one has a color tuner dial on the bottom. So you can use that to fine tune the color of the bread. But essentially what it is a fine adjustment knob for this. And yes, I know the little knob thing for this is missing. I accidentally broke it while I was cleaning it. But yeah, this is one of those magic toasters, a lot like the Sunbeam Radiant Control Toaster everybody loves. And the reason I say so is because inside it has a little thermostat. And that little thermostat, it trips the release lever. This is one of those, it doesn't have an electromagnet. Well, it does have an electromagnet, but you see it's not plugged in. And by the way, look, check out the old cord. I do need to replace this with a 3-prong, but I can't find any HPN wiring, any HPN cable, the high temperature type. Anyways, once I find that. So, like I was saying, this one doesn't have an electromagnet that holds this down like modern toasters. It actually clips into place. It latches into place, and then when the bread is done, a little thermostat in there completes a circuit that momentarily fires a solenoid. That solenoid pulls on the release lever, which will trip this, and it'll come up. And I haven't used a lot of toasters in my life, but this is the absolute best out of the ones that I have used. We had this old crappy Black & Decker toaster that's only, it is like maybe 15 years old now at this point, but it probably only has like 1 year of use on it because it was garbage. It had one of those dials that went from 1 to 5, and it was timer based, unlike this one. So what would happen is you'd put the bread in, and you'd select, you'd have to guess which number it is the first time around because you don't really know. They're just numbers instead of colors like this. This gives you a good idea of what the bread's going to look like. The numbers don't. So you pick a number, you pull down the lever, and it'll pop up, and the bread will still be mostly white. It won't be toasted to what you wanted it to. So then you just put in the next slice of bread, and then you pull the lever down, and then the bread comes out burnt. Why? Because it's timer based. It doesn't know that the toaster is hot. It didn't account for that. So every time you'd have to be playing a rain dance, like you'd have to be messing with the dial. You'd have to crank it up for the first toast, and then for the rest of them, you'd have to find a good spot to keep the dial in for the next toast while it's still warm. And if you forgot to do this, you'd screw up your toast. Not a problem with this one. You just set it and forget it. I've not moved the temperature or the color dial from there since I got it, and every single time it makes perfect toast. This is amazing. And even like, okay, so one issue with this, one of my gripes with this is that these slots not only are they quite narrow, they're also not very long, and they're also not very deep. It is an old toaster. That used to be the standard back then, and to be fair, you can get lots of bread these days that still fits in this just fine. Let's say you have like a longer piece of bread, like let's say this for example. This is a little bit too long, it would stick out a little bit. Now, that's inconvenient, the top of it doesn't really get toasted, but what you can do, and I might demonstrate this later, is you can flip it around and then put it back in, and because the thermostat is already detecting that the toaster is quite hot, it usually only just toasts it enough and then ejects it again, instead of burning it like that white toaster that we had, the Black & Decker one would. So I really like this thing. The wood paneling is a little beaten up. Oh yeah, I didn't mention, this toaster, like these plastic Bakelite parts, they used to be like this hideous yellowish beige color. And it just wasn't going to fit in with this kitchen, so I had to do something about it. And I didn't have to repaint it, it was actually black underneath, so I just peeled off all that paint, which was probably lead paint. I had to take these wooden panels off when I did it, and unfortunately they got a little crumpled that you can only really see it from certain angles, so it's not a big deal, but whatever, it still looks a lot better than before. This thing would have been back in the garbage again if it was beige. Also, this is a 1050 watt toaster, so it's pretty hefty, it's pretty powerful, and it's pretty quick. I like it. I like this thing a lot. It's nice and compact. Its dimensions are very small. I just put it right there and it barely takes up any space. It's nice and lightweight too. It doesn't bother with any insulation, so the metal parts do get quite hot. Even the plastic does. But you know, just be careful. Make sure that the bread bags don't come into contact with it and you're good. I see there's a little bit of a blemish there. Overall, it's in pretty good shape. There are scratches and things that won't show up on the camera. Like there, you might see some. Overall, it's in great shape. I really like this thing. These old Proctor Silex toasters, I think, were great. It's not as good as the Sunbeam Radiant Control, but it's definitely pretty good. It's up there. Let's give it a toast cycle. Yeah, I really do need a ground. I'm not even plugging into a GFCI. So this slot here says 1 slice. We're only putting in 1 slice, so that's where we put it. Unfortunately, I don't have any regular size bread, so this is gonna have to do. That always scares me. And yeah. Okay, this one was a little bit weird, not a great example, but trust me, it usually does a better job than this. And then you can flip it upside down, put it back in, and it'll toast the side that it missed. You can see the heating elements glowing bright orange. Getting to work on toasting that bread. That's because this bread is kind of warped. Some parts of it end up, yeah, see? Because the bread warps, it ends up sticking through the cage and it ends up being closer to the heating element than the rest. I like how this is like the first time it's made an error in toasting bread and it happens to be when I'm actually recording. See? And it toasts the part that was missing. This again, it's never done that before. It only did this because I'm recording. It only did this to make a fool out of me, but that's still not bad. This is better than what that Black & Decker toaster we used to have did. That's some good toast if I ever tasted any. This thing, I love it. Oh, and by the way, I also have an Eaton Viking snowblower made by MTD, I think. I have a video on that, so check that out if you want to know more about the Eaton Viking brand. Actually, none of my videos will tell you anything about them because I don't know anything about them either. Anyways, have some fun under the glowing orange sun.